Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli. We're here for a special episode of Ask Alec with Xiaoyi, but he's been following the channel for a while and he's thinking of moving up in stakes and playing some bigger games, and he has a question. So Xiaoyi, what is your question about moving up?
My question is, when I move up and I don't have like enough bankroll to play the big game.
Yeah?
So how to change my strategy?
Yeah.
To like lower the variance, but not like sacrifice too much EV.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, before we get into it, I have another video on this channel called Practical Poker, which covers this subject a little bit, so you might want to check that out as well if you want more on this subject. But Xiaoyi, I think this is a great question, but I think sometimes when people move up in stakes, the mistake they make is they give up too much EV. They play way too tight, so they do things like, you know, flat call with something like a hand that should be a 3-bet, or they don't raise the river when they should because they're too scared that, you know, they're going to go broke, and so they just play this super defensive style, and yes, their variance is lower, but they end up practically being a losing player in the games because they're not taking advantage of those spots. So I understand what you're saying, where you could take some lower variance lines. For example, maybe you don't 4-bet as often with your ace-X blockers, right? You don't want your opponents to know that that's your strategy, because otherwise you're going to be too exploitable. They're going to take advantage of you. You don't want people to know you're taking shots in bigger games. You don't want people to know your strategy. You never want to show your cards at Showdown if you don't have to. But so you might want to take lower variance lines like that, or maybe in a spot where, you know, you're post-flop, you're developing a mixed strategy. Let's say you have a hand that could be a check raise or it could be a check call. It could go both ways, right? You want to balance your range between check raising and check calling. Maybe you take the check call line. But you know, you don't want to do this all the time. So if you're playing in that game for a longer period of time, you're going to want to mix up your game a little bit so you keep your opponents guessing. But if you're jumping here over to Macau and you're playing here for 2 days and you're taking a shot in the 100, 200 and you normally pay 50, 100, those players are never going to know what your strategy is, right? They're never going to see the long term. They're not going to see that you're flatting with certain types of hands. And if they do, you can adjust your game. But if you just flat once and you fold, or you fold ace-5 suited instead of 4-betting, they don't know that. They might just think you had king-queen offsuit and fold it. Yeah. So I'm all for being practical. It's what I call practical poker. And maybe mixing up your game a little bit, maybe being a little bit more tight, maybe not 3-betting out of position with some suited connector that you would normally 3-bet with. You could tighten up your game a little bit around the edges, you know, play 15-20% tighter and just lower your variance and then still not give up too much EV. But you don't want to get carried away with this where you have a spot that you know how you should play the hand, but you're too scared to play it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So one question I really like to ask myself in real time when I'm playing this hand, because realistically, a lot of times I end up playing in a big game, and the big game might be 5 times bigger than the game I'm normally playing because that's where the VIP wants to play. And in those games, it's really important to still play your best poker. So one question that works really well for me that I ask myself is, what is the best way to play the hand? So I'm in the middle of the hand, I'm thinking about the strategy, and when it's on me and the stakes are getting big and I know it's time to make a check raise bluff or whatever it is, I say, what should you do here? And I ask myself in third person, because removing myself from the situation makes it easier to be objective about what the best play is. So I say, what should you do here? And then that trains my mind to focus on what is the correct answer, not I'm scared of the money, or not I don't want to take this play, or not I'm too scared to make this big bet. And that keeps me focused on how to play the hand the best way possible, which is going to increase my long-term expectation. So I have my strategy going into the game. My strategy going into the game might be, I'm going to play tighter around the edges. But then when I'm in the moment of the heat of the moment of the situation, in order to keep myself in check, I ask myself that simple question. And that works really well for me. What do you think?
Maybe sometimes I can play some play some big game with some like not good players.
Yeah, and I think that's a good overall strategy. This is also really important to do, especially if you're on a shorter bankroll and you can only afford to take a shot or two in the game. People aren't going to know that you're taking a shot. They're not going to know that you're playing tighter. It's going to take them a long time to figure out because it's live poker. So you could still get in the game and get your 4, 5, 6 hours of EV in playing that tighter strategy and then bounce. But you don't want to make this a long-term strategy, otherwise the better players are going to pick up on it. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Awesome stuff. That's it for this episode of Ask Alec. If you have more questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll pick the best ones and feature them in future videos. Subscribe to my channel because there's more awesome content from Macau, whether it's vlogs or my life here as a high-stakes player and coach. More Ask Alec and Hand of the Day is coming from Macau. So that's it. Stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. See you guys next time. Cheers.